Hi, I'm Dr. Tamar Green. I'm going to present to you our new paper publication from Developmental Medicine and Child Neurology. So bear with me when I share the screen. Okay, so you can see the first page of our paper right here. The title is Effect of Sex Chromosome Number Variation on Attention Deficits, Hyperactivity Disorder Symptoms, Executive Functions, and Processing Speed. And I invite you to read the full manuscript. So why is it important to study sex differences in psychiatric morbidity? First of all, because it exists and it's a very, very prominent phenomena. We see sex differences across all our disorders, and just to visually demonstrate it here, in neurodevelopmental disorders, we see that males present with more disorders than females. For intellectual disability, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorders. In contrast, for mood disorders, at the adult age, we see more females who suffer from mood disorders and anxiety. The challenge is that it's not easy to study the effects of sex chromosome or sex hormones on psychiatric disorders, because these disorders are common and polygenetic, and there's so many effects that are genetic, cognitive, environmental, on the end phenotype, meaning how the disorder will manifest itself. So we need to find better models to study that, and one of the unique opportunity to study those sex differences comes from another phenomenon in humans is of sex chromosome aneuploidies, which means different of varying numbers of sex chromosomes in females or males. And in this specific condition, we studied Klinefelter syndrome that happens in 1 to 400 individuals, where the child has 2 X chromosome and one Y chromosome. Phenotypically, these children are boys, and we call it XXY. Another syndrome that we included is Turner syndrome, and this disorder happens in 1 to 2,000, and these females have absence of one of the X chromosomes. So instead of 2, they have 1 X chromosome. And in our study, we contrasted boys with Klinefelter syndrome, XXY, with XY, typically developing boys, and we technically evaluate the effect of the X chromosome excess. Also, we contrasted girls with Turner syndrome with X0 with typically developing girls, and we essentially evaluate the effect of X chromosome absence. Now I'm going to go over our main findings and talk about the main take-home messages. So here you can see our parent-rated questionnaires about the child, targeting symptoms of ADHD, hyperactivity, and attention problems, and also evaluating executive functions. And you can see the results show that compared to typically developing males and typically developing females, girls with Turner syndrome tend to present with increased hyperactivity and attention problems. Boys with Klinefelter syndrome present with attention problems, also elevated hyperactivity, but those did not reach significant difference. So girls tend to suffer with Turner syndrome, tend to suffer from hyperactivity and attention problems, and boys mostly from attention problems. When we look at executive function, we see that the profile we see the profile here, and girls with Turner syndrome tends to present with elevated inhibition issues, shifting, working memory problem, planning and organizations, while boys with Klinefelter syndrome also present with working memory issues, but less so with inhibition or shifting issues. Then we were able also to measure these constructs in person and to evaluate the kids themselves. And we use for that the NAPSI and also measures from the Wechsler scales. And what you can see here is that, again, girls with Turner syndrome tend to present with auditory attention issues, response issues with response inhibition and inhibition compared to typically developing girls, but we cannot recognize these, although there's a trend, we cannot recognize statistically significant differences for boys with Klinefelter syndrome. What might be part of the issue is that our group of Klinefelter syndrome boys was smaller and young, and some of the assessment we could not administer, for example, response set of switching. So we also looked on the Wechsler construct of processing speed and working memory, and we can see here that for processing speed, both groups present with weaknesses in processing speed compared to typically developing controls. To complete our analysis, we also conducted effect size analysis using a non-parametric effect size analysis. And just to orient you to this graph, on the top you see x-axis, and this represents the Klinefelter group, and x-absence, which represent the Turner syndrome group. And as you probably observe here, effect sizes are increased for Turner syndrome and statistically significant because they don't cross the zero. And but for working memory, both groups are affected, similar to our results before. What's different in this type of analysis, what we found is that we confirmed that also in person, the in-lab assessment of auditory attention and response set, hence attention skills, are affected in both groups. And to the takeaway messages, or what this paper adds from the actual paper, is that X chromosome number has a distinctive effect on attention, on ADHD symptoms, and X chromosome absence, hence Turner syndrome, is associated with increased attention problem, hyperactivity, and weaknesses in executive functions. The X chromosome excess is associated with weaknesses in attention and working memory. And the clinical management of these groups should focus for Turner syndrome on attention problem, hyperactivity, and weak inhibition skills, while on Klinefelter syndrome, focus should be on attention problems that can be challenging to recognize when they are not accompanied by hyperactivity and impaired working memory. Me and my co-authors want to thank all the families and children who volunteered to participate, the Turner Syndrome Society, the Turner Syndrome Foundation, the Association for X and Y chromosome variations, and to our funding agencies. Thank you.